you. That's why the enemy has targeted you from a young age. And you knew in yourself, you knew that you'd be used, you knew that there was something, you couldn't describe it, you couldn't work it out, but God knew what it was, that you would be useful for his kingdom, you know? You knew that there was something that was brewing inside of you, something was going to happen in you. You didn't know when. And you went through so many trials, you went through so much hostility, you went through so much controversy, but you made it. And it wasn't in your time, it was in God's time. So you went through a season of where you didn't know who you was and where you was going. But we think that it's never going to end. When you're going through those trials and those storms, you think it's never going to end. You think there's no end to it. But you will always get through. You will always get through, because time is in control of everything. God is time and time is God. God created time. And you've got a time, we've all got a time to realize who we are in Christ. So God didn't forsake you, God didn't neglect you, God didn't forget about you. No matter what you've gone through. You might have gone through relationships, you might have gone through bad friendships, you know, you might have gone through problems with your parents, your family, whatever. But God knew, it made you stronger in the long run, and God knew where you was going, and God had a purpose for your life. That all the things that you've gone through, that's been your training to get you where you are right now. Because if you are born again, if you are a child of Christ, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And the enemy will target you, the enemy will come for you, because he knows there's something different about you. He knows that you've got a light. He knows that you've been chosen by God, you know, to help people, to advise people. You've got wisdom, you've got discernment, you've got knowledge. This is what God does. You know, I remember when I was younger, I kept on going on these courses, English courses, communication courses. I was saying to myself, why do I keep going on these courses? What's it leading to? I didn't even know myself, but it was part of God's plan, you see. And presentations and talking and communications, I didn't know where it was going to, you know. But God had a plan for me in my life, and I'm very grateful, because I was walking around in a daydream. I didn't know who I belonged to, I didn't know where I was going to, I didn't know where I'd end up. But I'm doing the ministry of God right now. I've got a YouTube channel, and I'm going out evangelizing, and that's what I need to do. This is my purpose in life, you know. So no matter what you do in life, as I've just said before in that prayer, you can never run away from your calling. You can never run away from what God has intended you to be. As for me, I would always be laughed at. There would always be jokes about me when I was younger, you know. I'd always be picked on. I would never fit in with people in the community. You know, they'd be laughing and, you know, rolling around on the ground, and I'd say, what are you laughing at? They say, never mind, it's okay. But all the time he was making plans, and he was having fun, and he was basically taking the mick out of me, but I didn't realise, you see. But Satan put all of these people in my path to try to beat me down, to try to knock me down, to try to make me feel less than what I was. Like, they was used as pawns, they was used as devices to take away my confidence. Do you know what I mean? But eventually that all sort of fizzled away, because those people that I grew up with, they was never for me. They was never real friends. They would never have a good word to say about you. Do you know what I mean? Basically, they all betrayed me. A gang of about 20 lads who I used to hang around with, each and every one of them betrayed me. That's what I went through when I was younger. So that was a traumatic time. But the past can be used to help you. You've got to go through trials, you've got to go through storms. You've got to go through those seasons where you feel lost. It's like going through the valley of the shadow of death. You don't know where you're going. You know, your family, your friends, the people in your workplace, everybody seems to be against you. You don't even know the path that you're on. You don't even know where you're going. You don't know where you're going to end up. But God had a purpose for you, all of us. Because we're all different. We've all got different personalities. We've all got different things that we can be useful in the kingdom of God. You know, you might have strengths in one area, you might have strengths in another area. We don't know until we try. We don't know until we get the chance. You know what I mean? So there was always, with me, there was always an awareness of God. There was always, I always knew that God was watching. I always knew that God was monitoring. I always knew that something was going to happen, but I couldn't put my finger on it when I was young. I just couldn't put my finger on it, you know. I went through so many situations, and some bad situations, some really bad situations, and I do believe that God took me out of those situations, you know. I had to go through it. I had to go through that torture, because if you haven't been through those bad times, how can you help people that's in those bad times? You don't have a clue what they're going through. So it was necessary for me to go through those times. I mean, I was born in the 1980s. It was totally different to what it is now. You just can't even compare it, you know. But it's still human nature. It's still the same emotions. It's still the same, you know, we're still human. How can you surrender yourself to Christ if you don't know where you're coming from? If you've not been at rock bottom, how can you, if you still think that you don't need Jesus, how you're not used to him. So you've got to go through those. I mean, some of the things I went through, it will bring a grown man to tears. I'm telling you, some of the things I've been through. I was always on the wrong side of the fence. I was never accepted. People was always against me. People would say, "Oh, it's because of you. It's because of you. It's the way you are." That's what my mum always used to say. There's something wrong with you, you know. But I knew there wasn't something wrong with me. No matter how many people tried to tell me there was something wrong with me, I knew it wasn't me. I knew it was the world. I knew it was the people. Do you know what I mean? I know when someone's wicked and evil. I knew all I wanted was friendship and love. That's all I wanted. But I couldn't find that in the community where I grew up. You know, everybody who's born again will go through it, and they will have people against them. If you are with Christ, you will have people against you in your life. You're going to feel it, you're going to know it, you know. People will just take an instant dislike to you because they sense that there's something different about you see. But all these things that you go through, God is building your strength, he's building your resilience, he's toughening you up, because the world is broken. The world is mashed up, basically. So you need to go through these things. I mean, I was a young kid and I was going through these things, and you know, there didn't seem to be an end to it, and it was very upsetting. I didn't get any support from my mother, from my brother, nothing. The people in the community. Basically, I brought myself up, you know. But that made me stronger. That made me independent. I didn't need to depend on. I learned to grow up the hard way. I brought myself up. I didn't have no help from nobody, you see. So that's made me into a strong person. Satan always tried to stop me, to slow me down, to set me up into situations where I'd be beaten up or something would happen, you know. But I always had a little word: don't go there, don't go there. I mean, I was in a big gang. And if you fall out with one of them, all of them are after you. All of them. That's what I went through when I was 12 and 13. I was even afraid to go to school. I knew what school bus they was getting, and I had to wait until their bus went, so I could get my bus. That's how bad it was. Because if I got into their path, I would have got a good hiding, you see. That's what it was like. In Toxteth, I'm not just saying everybody was bad in Toxteth, but that's the way it was for me. And I thought, this is strange, this. Why is everybody against me? Things like that don't just happen. It's because of Satan. It's because of the enemy. Because everybody else seemed to fit in quite well. Everybody else was accepted, you know. But for me, I wasn't accepted. I wasn't accepted. Not even. They would talk different. They would act different. My mum even told me. She said, "The things that you've gone through, you should be in a psychiatric unit. The things that you've been through. You worked in one." But I'm just strong. I'm strong. You know, I know what I need to do. I know my purpose. I know that Jesus is real. I know 1000% I know Jesus is real. God knew who I was when I was in my mother's womb. And as soon as I was born, Satan knew who I was. He knew who I was, and he knew that he was going to make it difficult for me. You know, in the workplace, at home, and even in the church. Some churches, that's why I don't go to a big church anymore. Because there's that much gossiping going on, there's that much jealousy going on. Jeremy, you're lucky that you're in a small church, I'm telling you, because those big churches are really, really not nice. You'll see the same people that you've seen for 3 years. Oh, morning. It'll be like that, you know, what's going on? So, this is a very, very evil world. This world is rampant with unclean spirits, I'm telling you right now. If people don't know it, people just think, oh, it's normal. This is normal life. It isn't normal. This world is fallen and it's broken. But we've got Jesus in our lives. We've got the lifeline. We've got what do they call it when you throw the thing into the water? The life preserver. We've got the life preserver. We've got the chance. We've got the chance of, you know, seeing the kingdom. And it's a shame for those people who don't actually know the truth. They're walking around like zombies. They think this is it. You know, they don't even know that there is a real, true God. So you don't need titles, you don't need certificates, you don't need a doctorate, you don't need to call yourself a bishop or the Archbishop of Canterbury or whatever you want to call yourself. Because God doesn't do that. He doesn't need that. Titles and qualifications mean nothing. All you need is a heart for God. That's all you need. Positions mean nothing in the sight of God, because he used David, who was a simple shepherd boy in the field, became the king. Was it the king of Judah or the king of Israel? So God can use a simple person. He can use a tramp on the street. If he wants you to be king, you'll be king. Somebody who was in the prison, like Joseph, was second to the king of Egypt. That's what he can do, you know. So don't ever think, oh, it's only me, I'm not good enough. You are good enough. You can. God will lift you up, not man. God will lift you up. God will. But these people, you get them, and they're so puffed up in themselves. They've given themselves all these titles and all these promotions in the church. They're walking around with the big gold chains on, and they think there's something special. God didn't even put them there. They've appointed themselves. What I'm trying to say is, never think that you are not good enough to serve God, because you are. You're special. You are special people. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, God told me. God, I had a dream. God told me." God didn't tell you anything. You're making it up because that's what you want. God only tells his prophets. God only gives visions and dreams to his prophets and instructions to his prophets. He prophesies to his prophets. He doesn't prophesy to everybody on YouTube who's just trying to make money. or people in this, in some of these churches, if you say that God has prophesied to you and you're lying, you are punishable by death, because it talks about it in the Bible. It talks about false prophets in the Bible who claim that God has told them to do this and to do that, to speak to the people about this and speak about that. But the liars, that's what they are. They need to repent. They need to repent and turn away from what they're doing. It's a very, very serious thing indeed. You're giving a false testimony, you are a false witness, you're deceiving the people. If you are proclaiming that God has told you something that he hasn't, what's the motive for that? Money. You will be in the lake of fire. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 14, verse 14, God says, the prophets are prophesying lies in my name. I didn't send them, I didn't appoint them to speak. They are prophesying false visions, worthless deviations and deceit of their own minds. This is what they do. But they will say in the judgment, I prophesied in your name. I prophesied in your name in the judgment, and God will say, I never knew you. I never knew you. Depart from me. You are a liar. You are a worker of iniquity. You are a deceiver. This is what God will say to some of these people. Just be careful when you hear the messages online. When you probably won't go to another church. I don't know, but I was going to another church in Preston for a while. I just want to focus on one church. I don't want to keep going to different churches, But I've been asked this week to give a testimony of myself. I've been rambling on a bit. But I've been a member of Strong Tower for is it more than a year, isn't it? And I've always tried to come every week, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the worship, I enjoy the people, I enjoy the tea and coffee afterwards. But it's a good church, I can feel the Holy Spirit in this church. You get to know everybody, it's not like there's people that you don't know. But Lisa and Dennis, they tell you things that you don't even, all the nitty-gritty things in the Bible that you don't know, that you've never heard of. They'll go through it and they'll say, oh, I didn't even know that, thank you. So it's really good in that way. The teaching, the Bible study has helped me so much, even in my channel that I've got now. Sometimes you'll do a Bible study and I'll mention it in one of my videos on YouTube. So that's why it's really, really good.
Anthony, could you just take us through your childhood?
I'm getting there. I'll get there. But I was brought up, I was raised in the Church of England church in Liverpool, Princess Avenue in Liverpool, right in the heart of Liverpool 8, St Margaret's Church, and that church was attached to the school. It was attached to the school, and because I was bullied so much in the school, not because, but that was a consequence of my growing up. When I went to the church that was attached to the school, it was like a little sanctuary. It was like a place of safety. It was like, I just looked at all the stained glass windows and all the pictures and, where the priest will do the sermons and everything.
Altars.
Yeah, and I just felt at home, and I got asked to do certain jobs in there, like being an altar boy and helping out, and that was a joy for me to go there. That was the only place where I felt safe. That was the only place where there was no sarcasm, there was no bullying, there was no nasty people. Most of the people in there the congregation was older, you know what I mean? But it was very nice, and we got to go on little outings, we went to different places, and it was fantastic, I'll never forget. actually, the vicar, his name was Father Colin, he was the one that got me my promoter job in the Merchant Navy. But I was born in Liverpool late, and back in the 70s, it was a ghetto. People called it the ghetto. I don't like the word ghetto, but that's what they called it, you know. It was very, very rough, you know. You go out and then you come back and your front door would be kicked in, all your jewellery would be gone. That's what happened. That's what happened. There was Chinese, there was Indian, there was African, there was West Indian. Everybody lived in one area. It was like, I don't want to say melting pot, but it was like, you know, you just dumped everyone, all the immigrants, go on, you get in that area. I wasn't accepted though, even by my own black people. You would never expect the people of your race to be against you. But that's what it was like for me, you know. We was the people, like my mother, my grandfather, my grandmother, they came from Jamaica in the 1940s. So we was like the Windrush, they call it the Windrush generation, you know what I mean? And so I was like the grandchild of the first generation that came over, you know. So we was growing up, and we go around to the grandmother's house, and she'd be making rice and peas, and you know, curry goat and all of that. You know, and then all my granddad's friends would be there. They'd be playing dominoes, slamming the dominoes down on the table. So it was like seeing the pockets of, you know, the culture, the community. Do you know what I mean? But my mum always told me that she went through a very difficult time with my granddad, and unfortunately she passed it on to me, what she'd gone through, you know. And I said to my mum, I said, you know, you need to break the cycle. You can't keep, you know what I mean? But you couldn't talk to him about that. But I never expected my brothers and sisters from that community to be against me. I thought, we're all in the same boat, why can't we be friends, you know? And I have forgiven them, but the things I went through, it was very, very, I mean, I don't think any of you lot could have took it. I'm not being funny. You couldn't have took it, what I went through. But like I say,
we want to hear it.
the people that are in the community were mainly from the Caribbean, you know what I mean? And it was cheap housing, it was poor housing, it was a rough estate, you know, and your own people had no respect for you, for their own community, you know. The violence that was going on, you know. But at that time, there was the National Front, there was the Skinheads, there was the NF, you know what I mean? There was all kinds of, well, supposing Toxteth was Loughton, you couldn't go outside of Loughton. If you went to another area, then you was in trouble because you get beaten up. That's what it was like. Everybody of colour was put in one area, and there you had to stay. You were safe there, you know. But within that dynamic, we was fighting against each other. So that was the pity of it. Nobody went to church. Nobody went to church. There was no Christianity. I was the only one, really. I think I was the only one from my school that went to church, you know, in the junior school. But like I say, that was the place where I felt safe. I remember when I was a kid, though, in the local neighbourhood, in the summer holidays, in the school holidays, you know, you wanted to make friends, you wanted to be with people, and you'd go over to a group of kids and they'd say, oh, what do you want? Don't come over here. We don't want it. You're not coming with us. That was the rejection that I had all the time. And I couldn't understand it. Why is it like this for me? What have I done wrong? You know. But I've spoken to so many people and they've gone through the same thing, like an exclusion, a rejection from the word go, you know, and it's difficult. It was the devil's tactic. It was the devil's plan. When you are predestined to be someone with God, the devil will know it. The devil will know that you are valuable, you can be important to the kingdom of God, and he will use all kinds of tactics, spiritual warfare, you know. He will use all kinds of tactics to stop you from having a good life, you know. So Satan knows the ones that's going to be useful. Satan knows the ones that's going to be a threat to his kingdom. He knows. That's why he's going to make it so difficult for you in your life. You will, when you are born again, you will experience this. You will experience so much rejection in the workplace, in friends. Maybe if you tell your friends that you're born again, maybe the friends that you've just been born again. When you see them same friends, they might say, "Oh, I don't want to know you." Do you know what I mean? That can happen. So it's just preparing you for that, you know. But I couldn't even, with my mother, there was no affection, I couldn't go to mum, give her a kiss on the cheek or anything like that. Punishment, blame. Anything that went wrong in the house, it was me, it was my fault. Even though I had a younger brother, but it was always me, you know. I didn't know what it was like to grow up in a normal house, you know. I used to cry, because I was in a single parent family, and my mum always used to say, "I'm going to put you in a home, So I said, "All right, put me in a home then. I want to go in a home, put me in a home." Because I thought, it can't be as bad as this. So when the inspector came round from the council, he said, "Oh, I don't actually think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's any reason for you to go in a home. You seem to be in a good family." So she wasn't happy about that, because she wanted me to be in a home, you see. So, but God was with me, you know, because maybe if I would have gone in a home, I would have gone completely off the rails. But when your own mother is against you, when everybody in the community is against you, when your friends are against you, so-called friends, then it's very, very difficult. God was with me though. God was always with me, you know. I know that for 100% fact. I didn't even know my own father, but I kept asking my mother, "Oh, where's my dad? Every week I'd be asking her, "What about my dad? Where's my dad? Where does he come from? Don't bother me. But I kept asking, and I was persistent. And then one day, she went and got a photograph. She said, "There you go, there he is, there's your dad." I said, "But where is he?" She said, "Listen, don't bother me anymore. I've told her, you've seen who he is, that's it." You know what I mean? So there was no stories of how they met or anything. There was no background history to him or anything like that. So, you know, she took it as a personal attack to her whenever I asked about him, you know. And it wasn't a personal attack, it was just me wanting to know my own identity, where it came from. Every child's got a right to know who they belong to and where they've come from. You know, she'd always get herself worked up, she'd always get herself annoyed and stressed out. If you asked her anything about your own family, she'd be opening that box of cigarettes and smoking and, you know, stressed out. And everybody in the community, even though they was rough, they all had a mother and father. You know, and I used to say to myself, "Oh, I wish I had a mother and father. You know, I wish I was, you know." And I remember one time, I had a friend and he said, "Don't say anything yet, but you can come on holiday with us. I'll ask my mum." And stupid me, I did exactly what he told me not to do. When I went into his house, he said, "Oh, I'm not coming on the holiday with you." And he said, "I told you not to say anything." He said, "You're not coming now." But it's funny to, you know, to go over it. But in the future, I went on one of them sites, Ancestry.com. Have you heard of them sites, Ancestry.com? because I wanted to know about my dad, where he come from. I wanted to know some details. I had his name, and I was just finding the final details. I was just going to press the button to find out exactly where he was from, where he lived, because I heard that he had died. So I said, you know what? I've got my Father in heaven. I've got my Father in heaven. I don't need to know about someone that's rejected me. Is that going to help me? You know, is it worth me using my energy trying to find out about someone who doesn't even love me? I said, just get yourself together. You've got your Father in heaven. You don't need to do all this. You don't need to put yourself through this, you know? As time went on, I joined a gang. I wasn't accepted in the gang, but I joined it anyway. And I was looking for some kind of acceptance, some kind of belonging to something, because I didn't belong to my own family. So I thought, well, you know, I'll join this gang. I was never accepted in the community, but a chance came up for me to be friends. Well, I was friends with one person, but he was kind of the spokesperson for the whole gang, you know. So I thought, oh, this will be good. I've got some friends, you know, just what I need. So as time went on, I didn't realise that this guy, he was basically of the devil. He was so bad, he was so wicked and evil. Because every single member, because of him, every single member of that gang went against me. And it got to the point where it was like a witch hunt, you know, persecuted. Bricks thrown at you, rocks thrown at you, stones thrown at the house, you know. Just even afraid to go to school, like I said before, even afraid to go to school. He was even trying tactics of getting someone to knock on the door, say, oh, is Anthony coming out? And trying to get me to go outside so that they could all jump me, you see. This is what it was like. It was so, like I say, I don't think any of you would have survived where I grew up. You know, it was so bad. The people were so wicked and evil. But these things will make you stronger. If you remember what David went through with Saul, being pursued, being hunted down, tried to kill him. That's what it was like for me, and I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating. I could have been killed when I was younger, you know. And I just knew I had to get away. I had to get away from that whole place. I had to get away. So I knew that I just the only thing I thought was, right, I'm going to get a job, because I was coming up to the age of 15, 16. I'm going to get a job where I don't have to be living here anymore. So I applied to a load of shipping companies, and one company called P&O, they was interested, but the only problem was you needed 5 O-levels, like GCSEs, you know, and I wasn't even studying for one. I was like doing the lower grade CSE, I didn't even pass any of them. So anyway, I went for the interview, because they called me for an interview. And I had to go from Liverpool to London, 16 years old. I had to get the train in the morning. I think I got the train about 6 a.m. I got to London, in the East End of London. And I can remember before I was going, my mum said, oh, you're not going to get that job. What are you applying for that job for? You're wasting your time. You may as well just stay home. I got a jacket from my friend, a suit jacket. I got a tie, got a pair of pants, borrowed some shoes from my friend, and I jumped on that train and I went to London. And I got there and they said, oh, where's your parents? I said, no, I'm here by myself. I said, oh, we're very impressed. So at the end of the interview, the interviewer said, you will be hearing from us in a couple of weeks. So I took that as something positive, you know. And at the end, well, a couple of weeks later, I got the letter and they said, we're pleased to let you know that you've been successful. So that was my ticket out of Toxteth. I took 3 references. I took one from, I was on a YT youth training scheme. I was working in a restaurant called the American Dream, cooking burgers. And I had another reference from the church that I went to, St. Margaret's. So, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I asked God to help me, and I prayed. Because 2,000 people applied and only 10 was chosen. And I was one of them, you know. So I knew that was the hand of God helping me. I didn't even have the basic qualifications. But as I said before, it doesn't matter, does it? When God is with you, who can be against you?
Amen.
So I was able to travel the world. And, you know, everything changed, everything improved, and, you know, I got out of that bad situation. And I'm always thankful to God. I'll always remember what God's done for me. I went to work on the ships, 16 weeks training in London, in the, where was it? A place called Gravesend in London, which is like going towards Kent. We was training on the Thames, lifting the oars up, and all the water would run down your arms and everything. And we had to do sea survival, flipping the lifeboats over. You had to do firefighting, catering. You had to pass every single part of that course, you see. So anyway, that was a good time. But later on in life, I suffered from some health conditions. I suffered from a condition called ulcerative colitis, which affects your stomach and your bowels. And I had boils all over my body. Boils, you know. I went to the doctor and said, oh, you know, he said, oh, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. But that was from the enemy. I know it was. Just like when Job was attacked by Satan, that was from the enemy. Yeah, but everything went. Everything's gone. I'm healed of everything. So I hope this testimony will help people who feel they're desperate, they've got no hope, you don't know who to turn to, because you can turn to God, you can turn to Jesus, you can turn to Christ, because I was in a situation where I had no hope whatsoever, you know, but I trusted in God, you know. That's the only thing that you've got in this world. If you don't depend on God and you're dependent on people, people's going to let you down, you see. Especially if you know that you are a child of God, you're dependent on God, you're with God, you believe in Him, then you need to just trust in Him. And you can't trust in people. You can't trust in people, because people will always let you down. Satan will make people think that there's no such thing as God. Satan will make you think less of yourself. He'll make you put yourself down. He'll make you give up on yourself. He'll make you think, oh, what's the use in trying? But you have to try, and you have to get back on that horse and keep going and keep believing, and don't look back. Believe in all your heart and all your soul that Jesus really did die on that cross for us. Everything will sort itself out in your life, I'm telling you right now. Your faith and your trust and your belief in Jesus is what you need, and it was what I depended on. And that's how I made it, you know. He knows the true believers. He knows who the true believers are, and He knows who the fake ones are. And He looks at the heart. It doesn't matter how many certificates you've got. He looks at the heart. So I'm just so grateful that I went to that church when I was a kid. I was an altar boy in the church. I was confirmed in the church. I've still got a certificate. I used to love going to that church. The peace and the tranquility and the experience of that has made me into who I am now. You know, that was the presence of God in my life then and now, and the memories of it that will never leave me. You know, I was blessed. I took advantage of my opportunity. I was the only one from the whole school who went to that church. You know, nobody else did. So something was drawing me there. And like I say, your own family is against you, people in the community, teachers are against you, all kinds of everything you can think of that can be against you, but you can't let it stop you. You've got to keep going. Anyway, that's my testimony.